So these are the conflict communication styles. So oftentimes we'll fall into one of these. You've got you'll have a trigger that comes up inevitably. No matter how much work you do, there'll always be a trigger that comes up. And oftentimes we'll jump to one certain style as our like safe style, and then maybe if you get to the bottom of that wound, maybe it'll shift or maybe it'll just escalate. So there's the aggressive style where people get defensive and kind of start blaming and attacking the other person because they feel attacked, so they're just going to attack back to hope it goes away. This can often lead to like, those explosive arguments where people are yelling and kind of it gets physically very escalated. There's also the emotional style where people just get very highly emotional very fast, and like maybe they're crying the whole time, or maybe they're just like feeling everything and just it overwhelms them to the point where they can't speak or something like that. And then there's also the shutdown. So oftentimes people will just shut down and avoid, particularly if they've been taught in childhood that their emotions don't matter or that they haven't ever been able to be really held by a caregiver. If they haven't been looked after when they've had big emotions, you kind of just learn, well, I guess I'm on my own in this and I'm just going to do it all on my own and I'm just going to shut myself down because that's the way I keep myself safe from emotion. So oftentimes we'll have one of these that we naturally lean towards. And I think it's important to recognize when you are falling into that you have been triggered. And that's a good moment when you want to use like a somatic tool or something to kind of help regulate yourself back down, which I'm sure Jenny could help you with. And then you've got the open style. So the open style is kind of what we want to aim towards staying in as long as possible in an argument. Oftentimes we will get triggered. It's so human and natural to get triggered. So don't feel bad if you are struggling with this. But I think it's just important to note that when we are in an open style, it can be a lot easier to actually discuss things. We're in our thinking brain instead of our like fight, flight, freeze. And we can actually think about solutions and compromise. Whereas when we're highly triggered, we're just very much in our emotions. We're very much in like, you're hurting me right now. It can be really hard to actually think about solutions and be really hard to actually explain what we're thinking and feeling in the moment. Whereas you might see a lot more of the open style in like an argument where, for example, you're talking about, or not an argument, but like someone's dealing with something that is not to do with their partner. So maybe they're grieving or maybe they're struggling with someone at work and they've gone to their partner to talk about it. So it's like a lot easier to talk about, again, things that aren't personal. When your partner is saying you've done this and that's upset me, that's a personal attack and a threat on the relationship. So of course there's going to be a part of your nervous system that goes into fight flight and into these emotional aggressive shutdown. But when you're talking about, oh, there's someone at work who's really frustrating me, it's like you might be able to really hold space for your partner a lot easier in those kind of conversations because there's no personal threat, right? It's just the person at work. Like the worst that can happen is they leave their job, but that has usually not too much to do with you. So it's a lot easier to hold space and practice these skills and stay in the open in those kind of conversations. So if you don't really know where to start with this stuff, I would just start there, like practicing in those conversations, because that's kind of the level of calm and the level of, I guess, openness to having these discussions that you want to maintain in your own arguments about you as well. That's what we're moving towards. Now, it's a lot easier to stay in open style when you've done a lot of inner work, when you've done those shadow work on those wounds underneath. But for people who've never done anything in the self-development space, they are often going to jump really quickly from trigger to these emotionally heightened states. And the problem is with that, when we get really emotional in an argument, we get really heightened, all of a sudden it's not about the actual problem anymore. We stop talking about that, or we do, but we talk through it the lens of emotion. And then it becomes about de escalating. Like it gets so heightened, either aggressively or emotionally, or someone completely shuts down, where you're trying to regulate yourself again. You're trying to help your partner get back to that state of like homeostasis or calm again, that we're so busy worrying about that now that the actual fight or the actual issue that was brought up to be raised gets completely missed. And then by the time we've regulated again, often it just gets avoided after that. And then the same fight happens down the track because we haven't actually dealt with the wounds underneath. So that's why you want to be in open for as long as you can, because that'll mean you'll get to the deeper root easier. Yeah. Um, But yeah, this can be a journey for everyone. No matter how much work you've done, there'll always be triggers, but the more work you do, the more you're going to be able to hold space for the trigger that's coming up within yourself, but also maybe put that to the side for a minute and be able to hold space for your partner as well, which is kind of where we're going.